Welcome back into Buccaneers Total Access. First half of the show, we had head coach Todd Bowles. Now I'm so excited to be joined by defensive line coach and run game coordinator Kacy Rodgers. Coach, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
It's always wild to me how abruptly the season ends. And I'd love to hear from just a coach's standpoint, especially one that's a position coach. You're so close to the players so often. What are the emotions like for you guys as coaches once it comes to a close?
Well, especially in the professional aspect of the game, it's really hard because after the season ends, the life of the real football business side kicks in. So, being a position coach and seeing guys every day working with a particular group of guys throughout the season, the likelihood of that exact group being back the next year is very highly unlikely. It's usually it could be a 50% turnover or as little as 10, but you're never going to have that same group of guys together again. And then funny, you used to say that last night we had our D-line dinner, and it was just good to see. Even Earn came back, who got claimed by another team, but every guy I worked with was there last night for dinner. But as we sit there and finish dinner and everything, that's the last time that group of guys would be in that situation that I was coaching them.
Yeah, that's tough. And for you, looking back now, having a day or so to process the game, what are some of the big takeaways from the game on defense for you?
Well, the thing you just always remember, and it's all the little things people talk about. You got to create turnovers, and we did not create enough turnovers. Well, you said, then we got to eliminate big plays. It's just all the stuff that you preach just kind of reared its ugly head at the worst possible time.
I know also in this first 24-hour period, you guys do exit interviews with the players. Tell us a little bit about what that tends to entail, and what was maybe your message to the guys, in exit interviews.
Well, in my exhibit, first of all, I want them to tell me their reflection of the season. What did you think? What could we have done better? What did we think we did good? From our meetings, from the way we practice, from our individual drills, what can I do more to enhance you, or things that I might have not been providing that you need? Then you kind of see what their off-season plans are. These guys, it's funny, you have the exit interview, and a lot of them go to their cars and they're gone or whatever. It's just kind of touch base with them, seeing where they're going, what their off-season plans are, and then you kind of talk to them about what the future role, what role do you see for them going forward. You need to improve this and do that and stuff like that, and then wish them well, trade numbers, make sure everybody can contact and let them know that they need me, they know where to find me. And that's kind of it. And then for some of them, it's tough because some of them are free agents. So the life of NFL football really kicks in once the season ends, and the powers to be have decisions to make, and then we go from there.
For you guys looking back at the game, what were some of the challenges, especially early in the game, of getting off the field? I know that your poor guys were definitely having to play for long periods of time out there with some of those drives. What was keeping them on the field?
Well, the thing is, the way Washington attacked us is, and if you really look at the last three teams, kind of did the same kind of game plan. It was short passing game, run it, keep third down very manageable. And 3rd and 3, it's really hard to stop in the National Football League because so many aspects. What are you defending the short passes? Then they throw long. Are you playing well? Some teams 3rd and 3 like to run. So that, and then this past team, they had the aspect of not only running but the quarterback run. So you had to keep him in the pocket where you're kind of outnumbered. If you blitz him, you could leave a bad matchup. It's just mobile quarterbacks pose a lot of problems.
For sure. And I know, what are specifically looking at the way Jaden Daniels does it, what are the biggest challenges of trying to stop him, of both, like you mentioned, him being so mobile, willing to do other things, and maybe how is he even different week one as compared to this one as a rookie quarterback?
Well, you just see the growth, and the thing is, you sit there and you really look at going in, you felt like you had to stop the quarterback to win, and ultimately the quarterback made enough plays to beat us. That's the thing, my hat goes off to him, to being such a young player and what he's done. And it just made me think about it. You were talking about the different aspects throughout the year that people have tried. If you remember back, they beat Chicago on a Hail Mary. Chicago was rushing 3, inspiring the quarterback. That didn't exactly work out so well.
Not so well.
Then you have people blitz him, and he throws one-on-one. It's a chess match. So you're playing the game, trying to show him this look, confusing, being such a young player, but he's very poised, and I thought he did a great job.
We're talking to defensive line coach and run game coordinator Kacy Rodgers. What stands out about that last defensive drive, and knowing just how close you guys came to being able to get the ball back.
Well, the thing is just these guys throughout the whole year, the coach, I'm sure Todd has said this many times, the NFL is such a long season. You hit the spell, started off pretty strong, then you hit the lull where we lost like 4 in a row, then we had to bye this, and then since the bye, the way these guys have played, not just statistically, just overall, we kind of figured out who we were, and our identity started to really form. And the way they played the run, they were just tenacious. My hat goes off to them. It just didn't work out our way.
I know that in the 5 games before this one, you guys had held opponents in the second half to 9 points combined over those 5 games. What was happening at halftime, first of all?
You know what the thing is, you go after half, you go in, make the adjustments or whatever, but you see what was working. And sometimes maybe the stuff you were doing was working, we just wasn't executing very well. So it's sometimes it's very overrated. Or now, you've kind of had their best shot. This is what you're going to get now. It's easy to react. Now, when they're opening kickoff, you know what we practice, but you don't know what they're really going to do. So now you kind of, sometimes what the old coaching terms say, sometimes we just kind of stick our foot in the water to see kind of what are they doing. Then once you kind of know, then you can
adjust from there. For you guys, I know you held Eckler and Robinson to 43 total yards, and like you mentioned, also their quarterback runs as well. But overall, the run defense for this game, what stands out in terms of versus Daniels versus those guys, and what you were able to accomplish on both sides?
Well, the thing is, they were so multiple in the run game. One, they had Robinson, who came downhill more in the dot back. Eckler was shotgun runs in the quarterback. He was mobile, so you had so many different aspects of the running game to try to neutralize, and I thought the guys really bought into the game plan and they could identify this, and at least we try to take that away to try to increase our chances of winning.
And if you were to kind of give your guys a grade for this game, defensive line specifically, I know you also oversee, larger things with the run game, but defensive line for both run and pass, what stood out to you about some of the individual guys and your group as a whole in this game?
Well, it's funny to me, the thing that jumped out, especially after I saw it in person, then grading the tape, was the first snap of the game. Calijah really bulled the guard all the way back. Logan and Vita ran a little twist game, and I'm looking at the first play. He threw it away, but all 3 front guys were hitting the quarterback at the same time. So I get from that standpoint, as a coach, I knew they were ready to play. It wasn't like they didn't show up or this. And so the effort, and not just this game, those guys have done all year and played together and then you look at the production of each one of them, those things that stood out for me, because those things as a coach you harp on. We got to make plays, we got to make plays, and got to make plays. And when I look at their body of work from that game, and really for the whole year, I would say they tried to adhere to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we've talked about, you're also the run game coordinator, which involves more than just the defensive line, although it could probably just involve Vita, and that might be sufficient. But it does involve more people, and I thought about the fact that while thankfully, for the most part, your defensive line was pretty healthy this year, especially compared to the rest of the defense.
True.
Lots of injuries everywhere else on that defense.
Right.
How did that affect you as the run game coordinator and trying to work with all these different players and people out there, knowing that it takes more than just that front view?
To me, having that title is one of the biggest joys I've had in coaching. And when we go into each week, going into prep, the first thing after we go through the coach usually hit them on the install, this is what we're putting in, go through the personnel, I'm the first one up. It's the first thing we talk about is the run game. So I'm the first one presenting to the whole defense. And then from that standpoint, for me is now, one, I got to get my point across of, because this is the one time I got all of them in there. I don't just have the front. I got the linebackers, I got the DBs. Everybody, every position group is involved with us trying to stop the run. So I got 20, 25 clips to make sure they see, like, this is what we're facing. This team is not so good. This team is really, really good. And, we tried to hard going into the game. I believe Washington was the 3rd-ranked rushing offense in the league. So we knew going in, we cannot let them get the running game started. So just the way those guys really buy in, and You know, that's the thing is stopping the run is every position, and that's the thing I really like about the way we play defense. Everybody's involved in trying to get that done.
Yeah, the buy-in is so important when knowing that for outside corners, I'm sure they're originally thinking that's not exactly their money maker.
You need to get in that A guy.
Yeah. So I know for your position group, man, 3 of the top 4 sack getters on our team were from your defensive line. Calijah led with 7.5 in the regular season, playing in just 12 games, which is also incredible. Why did Calijah have such success, especially in so few games this year with those kind of numbers and at his spot?
Well, he's a talented player, and his passion, every person has a passion. This guy's a run stopper. He's very passionate about being a rusher. And certain aspects of our defense, we can create some one-on-one matchups for him, and he really excels. He wins more than he loses, so that's a good quality to have as a pass rusher. And the guy's just so explosive, and he just a different element, and it's kind of a complementary, different kind of piece, you know. In the past here, we had defensive linemen that 300.
Yeah.
So now you got 290 and Logan, 300 plus in Vita. Then you got
I love plus 300 plus. Love that. We don't need to get into the specifics.
then we got Calijah, who's 280ish. You know, it's just complimentary, but they kind of work well together, and it works for us right now.
And I know with Calijah, we had talked a little bit about the fact that when he was drafted, it was largely for the pass rush idea. Right. Not sure how he was going to do in the run game because 280. And I think that it seems like everyone has been very pleasantly surprised with his contributions there. Why do you think he's been able to have more success maybe than even you guys expected him to be able to have?
The thing, you know, going in, and I think, as a matter of fact, I remember bringing it up when we were doing the draft readings, is that, you know, tremendous pass rush. Our concern would be, you know, they're going against all these bigger offensive linemen, and they wear you down in the run game here. But the thing is, once being around Calijah and how hard he works, and he's really, really tough. So we knew he could hold his own there, and then the stuff we do stunt-wise and twist with his quickness, sometimes he's a major mismatch for a slower offensive line.
How fun was it to watch he and Vita have that sack competition going?
That was good, and the funny thing is when I would walk in the room, they had a little board up, so they would chicken who had most, who had this, and it was unbelievable. And when we go into our room and we start our individual prep for a team, you know, each one of them is assigned an assignment of personnel group in the run game. Calijah's assignment is the O-line. So he tells us this is their O-line, this guy struggles with this move, this guy. And he is so passionate about it. You know, he put the time in, and it's just like, that just kind of works for that group.
That's really interesting. All right, we're going to take a quick break here on Buccaneers Total Access. We're talking to defensive line coach and run game coordinator Kacy Rodgers, brought to you by Advent Health. This is Buccaneers Radio. Welcome back into Buccaneers Total Access. We are here with defensive line coach and run game coordinator Kacy Rodgers. So right before the break, we were talking about that competition between Calijah and Vita. Calijah just barely got him, but still, I mean, Vita finishing with 7 sacks is just incredible, especially at his position. So explain to everyone just how impressive it is and why you think this year in particular was like, this is his banner year of sacks.
Well, Vita plays nose for us in our 3-4 defense, and if you know anything about football, 3-4 defensive noses, usually when it's third down, they run off the field. Our guy, if he's off the field, runs on to the field.
It's crazy.
So that's impressive in itself. And if you go through the history of the NFL, who plays on third down at his size when in passing situations? You can go through all the great ones, and you can't find somebody as big as he is that plays on third down and is involved as much on third downs. We asked him to rush the passer, but a couple of games here, I don't know if you guys know, we asked him to drop in the coverage too.
Yeah, we did see that. That was pretty crazy to watch.
So there you go. So we ask a lot of him, and he's just a generational talent from that standpoint, the stuff we ask him to do for his size and stuff that he's able to do efficiently and on a high level. So hat goes off to him, but to be as big as he are and what we ask him or demand of him to give us in the run game to help us out, didn't have that much stamina left to rush the quarterback. That's a credit to him and his training, and because that's not an easy task at all.
Yeah, I remember that was the big story in the offseason was he lost some weight and he worked out with Sue and all of that stuff. Do you feel like you saw the fruits of that this year?
No question. No question. And funny you mentioned Sue. I had the privilege of coaching him, but he was one of the true pros when it comes to taking care of his body, eating right, getting rest, and training. I say a lot of things about Sue, but the ultimate pro from there. And then for Vita and him to spend the whole off season together, just really help Vita grow in that aspect, to kind of see where you're talented, you can play, but to extend your career and maximize your ability, you have to do this, and that was big to see. And then funny, last night at the dinner, Vita's going back with Sue this year, but also Kalijah's going. So
boy.
So my hat's off to Sue, whatever.
I already feel bad for other teams' offensive lines.
So they're going to be together the whole offseason training with Sue. So it's just funny to see how that had materialized.
Yeah, that's great. And how have you, that's a great example already of how they influence each other, both from like a leadership standpoint, but then it almost reminds me of, as we talk about when, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans are out there together and making defenses choose what they're going to do with these two incredible weapons.
Right.
It feels similar of when Vita and Kalijah are out there. How have you seen that affecting opposing offenses trying to decide to pick your poison?
Well, that's the choice they have to make, because we talked about creating one-on-ones for Kalijah. The matchup is because Kalijah's getting a one-on-one, because two have to go with Vita, then one has to go with Yaya, then another one. So they're going to run out of people here pretty soon. So one of them is going to command a double, and if you double Kalijah, you leave Vita one-on-one. If you double Vita, you leave Kalijah one-on-one. It's just the way it works.
Yeah.
So the way we try to do, whoever gets that one-on-one matchup, we kind of expect them to try to win.
And then I'm sure that it feels like at this point Vita and Kalijah are doing so well that they're playing at such a high level. But I know coaches are never saying they're perfect, that there's always things to keep working on. Of course they're not perfect.
So much. We're just scratching the surface.
So tell me, what are the things that you feel like you are still working on with both Vita and Kalijah?
Well, Vita, you're constantly preaching him to continue using his hands, because when as big and as strong as he is, when he uses his hands, there's not too many humans walking the earth that can stay in front of him.
Yeah.
But sometimes he let them get their hands on him before, and that slows him down. Then as far as Kalijah, just steady with as passionate as he is about the pass rush, just increase that, start playing the run. That's one thing that having Coach Sue, that I thought he did he could rush the quarterback, but that's just tough as playing the run. And that's kind of tough because most pass rushers don't want to play the run.
Yeah.
But he's a special breed because he can, and he buys in. So my hat goes off to him.
Yeah, for sure. We're talking to defensive line and run game coordinator Kacy Rodgers. Logan Hall, I remember when you came on the show at the very beginning of the season, you were talking about the fact that he's a bit of an unsung hero out there, more than people realize. And then now he ended up finishing with 5.5 sacks this season, was the other, 3 of the top 4 guys on your line that had that. What did you see has improved the most for him since coming in as a rookie, and just the ways that I think maybe Bucs fans don't know to even appreciate his contributions, other than including those sacks and then other than those sacks?
Well, the thing about Logan, the growth you see from year one is just learning. Our defense is very complex, and it's a lot for a young player to kind of gravitate through all the nuances of. So year one was kind of feeling his way. Year two, you was kind of seeing turn the corner, but we weren't having any production. He wasn't producing the numbers we needed him from his position. Then going into year three, it's just like you feel like the light finally came on for him. I think he had a tremendous offseason, and now you're seeing him. You've just talked about, I think we finished 4th in rush defense overall this year in the league. Logan started 16 out of 17 games.
Wow. Last
year, we were a top 10 in rush defense. Logan Hall started every game. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He kind of been there. He been doing his job, because if we were last in rush defense, you'd be talking about
right,
it.
Yeah.
So you ain't talking about him, but he's out there. When he
Yeah.
runs out there, then his sack production is, a lot of people don't give him a lot of credit. Understanding the way our structure of our defense, you got Kalijah and Vita in the middle, and you got Yaya, Joe, Nelly, and those guys on the outside. So when we go third down and rushing the passer, where does Logan go? he runs off the
Yep.
field. You see what I'm saying? So he has just as many sacks, and he get a lot less opportunity. We're blessed to have those guys. What if he got more opportunities? You have more production.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. But to our credit, I think, Todd did a great job of kind of recognizing that we could make plays. So we created another package that Logan Vita and Calijah stayed on the field on third down, and which gave him more rush opportunities. And if you really think about it, when we drafted Logan, it was to come to help us on the pass rush.
Yeah.
Now you kind of seeing
The reason for that.
reason for the
Yeah,
draft.
and then how about Greg Gaines and Will Golston, the guys who maybe we don't hear their names as much, but definitely have been big parts of this defensive line. What did they contribute this year?
Well, when you look at Greg, that's another guy I take my hat off to, because Greg, we got him from the Rams. Greg started in the Super Bowl that they won.
Yep.
So now you come here, and you got a tough job to handle to kind of beat out Vita, who's your general talent, but he came in and has bought in, and to go from a starter to knowing your primary role is to sub for Vita, that takes a lot, especially when you start talking about pros and their egos and this and that. That I take my hat off, because he never complains, whatever I need, boom, boom. And it's tough to be a guy that can rush and can make plays to run off the field on third down when he's talented. But the other guys are maybe a little more, you see what I'm saying?
Yep.
So the dynamic of the room with all those guys just kind of, it's amazing. And I told him that last night at our dinner, but Will, how he's been here, and go from starter to whatever you need, coach. And that's I told them all. CJ, Mike, just as a group, they are joy to coach, and the thing you love about them as a group is unselfish. They're in it for the big picture, not individual accolade.
That's great. All right, we're going to take one more break here on Buccaneers Total Access. We're talking to defensive line coach and run game coordinator Kacy Rodgers, brought to you by Advent Health. This is Buccaneers Radio. Welcome back into Buccaneers Total Access. We're talking to defensive line coach and run game coordinator Kacy Rodgers. I was remembering the stat that I heard about the last, especially basically since the bye week, that we have been out-rushing teams by over 120 yards, out-rushing them.
Right.
First of all, just getting 120 rushing yards in a game would be great. Right. But what a cool stat to show both the success of our run game and the success of our run defense, which is really incredible. I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts on, you're uniquely qualified to talk about that stat of both being the run game coordinator, but also you guys in training camp and in practice facing our O-line, watching guys like Bucky develop, and what you've seen of both sides of that, of why our run defense did such a great job, and then you getting that front row seat to watching the evolution of our run game from worst to first on that yards per carry.
Right. Well, that's the premise of our defense has been always the first thing we want to do is try to stop the run. So that's kind of been one of our biggest bedrock principles as we go in, and that's the way we always attack it. And one of the first coaches I worked for in this league, Coach Parcells, used to have this little formula. And when you look at both rushing yardage, if you have over 100 yards different, that usually equals 7 points. So if they have 20 and you have 120, that's pretty usually a 7-point difference in the game. So
interesting.
So that's big there when you start. So many of the little nuances that go into not just the statistics or how it factors in points. So that was big. But then you talk about the element of iron sharpens iron, going against our O-line and one-on-one and individual, then going against them in team. It only makes us better because, Carbs and those guys, Liam, they do a great job. One, not only giving their guys creating good angles, but causing confusion with the motions and flashes. And then you got misfit and you got a talented offensive line. Those guys, they are really a unique group because you never really see one without the other.
Yeah.
And you're talking about having a good offensive line, those guys have to be on the same page. And those guys, my hat goes off to them because those same core guys were here and you wasn't really talking about how great of rushing offense we were. Mm-hmm. Same guys a year later, you're talking about they're one of the best to do it. So my total hat goes off to them. They, Carbs and Pooch, they do a great job with them. technically, fundamentally, and they do a good job of scheming. You know, if you give them this look now, they're going to find a way to attack it. And then with Bucky and Rashard, boom, then you throw in Bake running.
Yeah.
That quarterback running thing is a problem.
It's a
again.
problem,
So,
especially one that lowers his shoulder like Baker does.
There you go. So but you can kind of see it's everybody wondering about how you win. It's still a matchup game. So here you go. You're running out there. Here you go. You got Jalen. Early in the year, you had Chris and Mike. Who you covering? Then you got Kate Ogden. That's a problem here. Then you want to play split safety. Oh, we'll hand it off to Bucky and Rashard. Oh, you got all them covered. Then Baker takes all. It drives defensive coaches crazy.
Yeah. If you were imagining, especially game planning against Bucky, how much would that keep you up at night?
That would keep me up at night because we can outnumber them. Yeah. But then you're leaving Mike one-on-one out there. Yep. It's the chess match, you know. So, if we double Mike and we take Bucky away, who covering Caden? And by the way, you don't want to leave Jalen by himself. It's just so many different aspects in the different formations and motions. And now you're looking for top Bucky, but it's two backs out there. Mm-hmm. Then Rashard goes in motion. Then the screen game there. That's a lot of problems.
Yes, it's a lot of problems that we're very happy we don't have to deal with on our side of things.
No question.
Well, and talking about dealing with something, I was thinking about what a welcome to the NFL moment it must have been for Graham Barton, who's already moving to a new position and a very challenging one. And there's Vita Vea on the other side in training camp as the welcome to the NFL. I imagine that was, in general, any new offensive lineman we have.
No question.
It's quite a scary way to enter the NFL. What did you notice about the way that Graham handled such a literal massive task when he first came in?
Such a competitor from the right on going into OTAs and right into training camp. And you're right, that's the first thing you line up. But from a standpoint, if you can block Vita or stay in front of him, there's not too many guys you're going to face on Sunday that's going to be any better. So that was a credit to him, one, picking up, and he's such a competitor, and his athleticism shows. And, they had some good battles in training camp, so we knew we had a good player.
What are some of the things that you've worked with Coach Bowles for a really long time, both here and other places as well? What are some things that maybe people don't know to appreciate about what he's done with this defense, particularly with so many injuries? And I know coaches will always say injuries aren't excuses and there's the next man up, but it's still different. There's a reason you had one guy slated to start and your plans for it. So what stands out about what Bowles was able to do with the group of guys that he had this year?
Well, the thing, I look at him and I work with a lot of different coordinators. Some coaches in this league this is the system. And they say, well, you're a cover two team, you lose a corner, put in the next cover two corner. Maybe he can't do that. Todd does a great job of kind of thinking outside the box. This is our system. This guy's down. This is his backup. His backup can't do this, but what can he do? He just wants to know what can he do, and we'll tailor the game plan to something he can do. So a guy who could be deficient in covering man-to-man, we'll put a safety over the top. This guy can't play zone, but he can play man. You play man, we'll play zone over here. So thinking outside the box and not putting guys in situations that it's an unfavorable matchup is something we don't do. We try to create the favorable matchup. This guy, he struggles in coverage. We'll blitz him. This guy struggles rushing, so we'll drop him and blitz the other guy who can rush. So thinking outside the box, and that's the thing any good defensive coordinator, good defensive coaches you run into, that's the quality that all of them have. They think outside the box. Now, if you got 8 first-rounders out there, just put them out there.
Yeah.
That's not a problem. Yeah. But when you don't, in this league, you still judge by wins and losses. You better find a way to utilize the personnel that you have.
We're talking to defensive line coach and run game coordinator Kacy Rodgers. What would you say are going to be your goals for the run game next year and maybe goals for your defensive line next year?
We would just continue to try to improve, because another thing that is tough for me to realize, and I guess I'd have realized, when you win the division now, you get the first place
You
schedule.
play the hard people.
So you going in, you talking about our rush defense, and let's tell you what, let's see who we played. Philly. I think they number 1 rushing off. You played Washington. You played Detroit. Baltimore.
Yeah.
Oh, top 4, and Washington.
Yeah.
Those are the top 4. You played them all.
Yep.
So for you to play all the best of the best and still be ranked as high you were, that's a credit to you, because you didn't play the Little Sisters of the Blind, so they played the best of the best. And so the thing is just to continue to improve, because winning the division again, you got another first place schedule, and all that comes with that.
That's going to be challenging. For you, you mentioned something about what you just said. Yeah, it's something I've learned as a coach. You've been coaching a very long time. What did this season teach you as a coach?
About perseverance and just keep playing because you never know. You just never know. We kind of seen it here. We started off 4-2, then you kind of hit the low, like here we go again. But so then after the bye, you make some adjustments. The team got some momentum, and then you just take off and string some wins together. Then we go to Dallas, and after the game, we drop one there now, and we're in a dogfight to try to make the playoffs. And I remember walking out of the locker room and see Todd's wife there waiting, and she said, just remember, we've been there before. And we have, Yeah. So that the thing about this team, our back's against the wall, sometimes we come out harder, continue to fight and go like that. And these core guys, this is really a team. And we got some great individual players, but it's really a team. It's like sometimes the offense going to have to carry us this game. Hey, defense, you need to try to win this one. Or, and when we clicking and playing well on both sides of the ball, including special, we'll be hard to beat.
Yeah. And then what are the hardest things maybe about defensive line, playing and coaching, that people might not know?
Well, the hardest thing is the wear and tear on these guys. If you play a wide receiver, you could run 10 or 12 routes and nobody touch you. I'm coaching a position where somebody is putting hands on you every play. There are not many plays where the inside defensive line is not getting touched physically by someone. Then you throw in Vita, he has 2 sets of hands on him 85% of the time. Yep. So the wear and tear, and then to be good, you have to practice it. So constantly, every day, hands on them, people pushing, then the body only got so many hits in it. So the wear and tear and the grind, and, these guys, when you get into the rosters and you talk about injuries, these guys are playing in duress. Their bodies towards the end of the year are not 100%. Yep. And you just see that. And as a coach, I'm just trying to get them through practice, get them to he has a wrist, he has a shoulder, he got a hamstring, we lost a calf, and those wear and tears, and it ain't like you can just go down to the shop and slap a new one on and keep it moving,
If only.
But they still have to practice, have to prepare. It's just the wear and tear and the grinds on their bodies and all that people don't see. You might see his contract numbers, but you don't see what he has to do to, like a term we use around here, we're just trying to get to Sunday. Yep. Whatever you got to do, extra treatment, massages, whatever you got to do to get to Sunday, and that the wear and tear and the rest they put their bodies under week in and week out. And
it also seems like that might apply to coaches as well, because you also were hurt recently. Is that true?
Yeah, I got a workman comp claim, but it is rough out there on these sidelines.
So I saw you basically getting carried off at halftime. Thankfully, you had large people there nearby to carry you off. What did you do?
I'm sitting here and I just stepped wrong and I popped my calf, and I was like, oh man. Then I couldn't put any weight on it, couldn't walk. Then they helped me get into the locker room. Then I had to take a golf cart out of the locker room, but it's just like it was hazard duty on that sideline.
Hazard duty. And then did I also see that you had official Kacy Rodgers scooter parking in the hallway outside the meeting room?
It's a rough crowd around here.
Yeah, they had no empathy. I saw that one day. They taped off a little sign for you.
It is a rough crowd.
Rough crowd.
That's another part of like coming to work here and everything. Is just it's the team aspect where everybody understands it's a business and we have to win games, but everybody's in it together, and nobody is above getting roasted by any stretch of
by any stretch. That is so true. Well, Coach, thank you so much for coming and spending time with us. We know you're very busy right now wrapping up the season, but thank you so much. We appreciate it, and we hope you enjoy your off season.
Wow, thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
All right, that's going to do it for us on Buccaneers Total Access, brought to you by Advent Health. This is Buccaneers Radio.